Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be making the same bowl that I made in the last video, the Easter Bunny bowl, but I'm going to use a different technique today. Instead of using the syringe, I'm going to actually paint the mica onto the mold. So first I'm using a pearlescent type of pigment with some isopropyl alcohol, and I just put a little in there because it makes it easier to actually paint the mica onto the mold. And I really like this pearlescent pigment because it does give a shifting illusion of color as you move the bowl around that you'll see in the end when I show you the final product. But I just use this little brush that has a sponge on the end. I think that they're usually used for lip gloss, but they make a great brush for putting pigment onto a mold. So I just painted the entire portions of the bunny with that pearlescent pigment, and I'll go ahead and speed this up so that you don't have to watch me do each one individually. But once I finished with this, then I started to work on the egg. I used 2 different shades of blue to do that, using the same exact technique with adding the isopropyl alcohol and using that little brush to apply that into each of the little cavities of the mold. Now, the one issue I had with using the isopropyl alcohol is that although it does dry quickly once it's exposed to air, it wasn't quick enough. So you might see a little bit of bleed between your colors. So a little bit of the blue might go into your white if you put a little bit too much of the isopropyl alcohol. But just go back over the white if that happens. The good thing is that your base is already there, so the bleed should be nominal. Then I did this middle here with this purple, and then added some green into the bush type things, leaves, I don't know what they're called, as well as the middle of each of the flowers. And then just to keep the number of colors I was using down, I decided to go ahead and do the surrounding flowers and the purple as well that were throughout the mold. Once I did that, I decided to use this silver pigment to do all the little bubbles that were on the egg elements. And then I also decided, which is completely optional, probably wouldn't even recommend it, to go ahead and do the entire outer edge of the mold with the silver. Unfortunately, the angle is really bad, but I did try to capture for you a little of what I was doing here with just painting that in. I honestly didn't show up a whole lot in the end result, so I'm not sure that it was worth the hassle. And then again, to keep the colors lowered, I just used the same blue that I had used on the eggs for these little hearts. Once I finished with that, I mixed up 8 ounces of resin initially and poured that in, spritzed it with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol, and then used my heat gun just to get rid of some of the bubbles. Now, once I did this, I did notice some of the pigment float to the top. In order to offset that, I decided to use 2 different pigment pastes, the white signal from Epodex as well as a light blue from Epodex. And then I just went over the resin I had already poured lightly with the white and the blue, and then used a heat gun just to kind of smoke that out. I did add an additional 4 ounces of resin, so this took a total of 12 ounces of resin to fill. I let that cure for about 6 hours, and once it was to the point where I could bend it, I then put plastic wrap into, because I'm using a glass bowl. If I were using the metal bowl, I wouldn't have worried about that so much. But I then put the plastic wrap into the bowl, and I just turned it over to make sure I had it centered properly and allowed that to sit. And I allowed it to sit for about 16 hours. And then it popped right out and was able to remove the plastic, and voila, here's the bowl. But as you can see, the silver doesn't really show up a whole lot. You can see it somewhat. It's a nice added touch, but you can see the shifting pigment too on the bunnies, which, like I said, you can see it's green, yellow, pink. It just depends on how you look at it. I added these little decorative eggs just to show you how the bowl could be used. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and press the bell to be alerted to future videos.